What's poppin', people? It's Dante. Today we're going to be discussing light in street photography and how we can use light to create stronger street photographs. And so at the end of this video, you should have a better understanding of the different ways that we can use light depending on the time of day, what kind of mood and dramatic effect can we create using light and shadow, using the different color temperatures of light and the different ways that we can wield our superpower, our medium itself. Our medium as photographers is light. You know, where light is the essence of photography. If you look at the word phos, meaning light, graphia, meaning drawing, we're drawing with light, we're painting with light, we're creating instant sketches of light. And I find this to be such a delight, where it increases my curiosity when I'm at a scene and I see these beautiful light and shadow play. I find that I'm simply curious when I'm photographing at these kind of situations where I see the dramatic scene unfold. I see the children playing on the pole. Here in Zambia we have a great scene, but it was the light itself that drew me in to make this photograph, as I was observant of the way the shadow casted upon the wall, and I was watching as the boy interacted at the scene and the way the light casted on his face. But ultimately, light is out of our control. Light is something very difficult to predict. Light is not necessarily something that we can impose on a photograph without the use of a flash gun. But here in this beautiful golden hour scene, I photographed as the boy and his face moved into the light, exiting the shadows, revealing his eye and crushing his face in black. And so on the back, in the right hand side of the frame, we have the revealing shadow from the girl who's playing, and this to me increases the depth and adds layer to the photograph, where essentially light gives shape and form to surfaces, places, people and things, and will always change and will always be different depending on the time of day. And so the favorite time of day for me is during the golden hour, where we have these long looming shadows and we have that warm, vibrant light. And so I've always photographed during this time of day because I've known that it would increase my ability to make a stronger photograph. Using light to increase the depth and to add drama and to make a photograph have a more intense mood can be a very simple way to making a stronger photograph. And so understanding light as the fundamental essence of photography can help us use it intentionally when we're at a particular scene. And so when you go out there, photograph with intention, recognize the time of day you're photographing and what light and how the light is casting on certain times of days during certain situations. You know, you can find yourself becoming in tune with your city, with your town, by studying the light and understanding where you must be and where you must position yourself in relationship to the sun to create a more dramatic image. For here in Shofat refugee camp in East Jerusalem, I had the sun to my back, using that to my advantage to create the subjects illuminated in the front light with the beautiful shadow play. And so something very simple today, discussing light. Hopefully you'll have a better understanding of how to use light and why the use of light matters. I figured we'll start off with a very brief behind the scenes video from my POV in Dobighat, Mumbai, India, at this open air laundry market. I entered this particular location in the low light, in the darkness, and this man is feeding a fire, and as he was feeding the fire, light was diffusing from the outside, entering the inside, and created this dramatic effect and helped tell the story of the photo. And so without further ado, let's watch the behind the scenes of this video.
Dante.
Yo,
I think we are gonna get the coolest picture over there.
let's go.
Let's just wait.
Let's go.
Let's wait outside.
Of this place?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this scene, I was scorching hot. I was sweating. It was so hot in here, full of heat, full of light. But the way the light interacted was a delight. The way in which the fire gave this side light to the man's face, and the way the paper that he's throwing was illuminated from the flames. We have this diffusion of light coming from the outside, entering this dark place, which adds strong contrast to the frame. And so the use of light can really increase our ability to create more compelling imagery. And so there's going to be a few different topics we cover today, considering the qualities of light, whether we're discussing the intensity of harsh or hard light versus soft light, the direction of the light, whether it's coming from the front, the side, or the subjects are backlit, the color temperature, warm versus cool, and then finally harsh diffusion, versus soft diffusion. And so I find the intensity of light to increase our ability to create more dramatic imagery, where during the hard light, when the shadows are looming and the light is casted, we can create an interplay and an interaction between light and shadow, where the man in the silhouette is crushed in the shadows. And so this dramatic effect we can find during that hard light. And so by placing the subjects in the frame as the sun is to my back, I was able to illuminate the man in the center in the light and give emphasis to his gesture. However, the thing that drew me into the scene, the reason why I photographed, was because of the light. The way that it was casted on that pole was interesting and visually engaging for me, as well as this silhouette of the shape of that circular sign on the left-hand side. And so by positioning myself at a particular choke point where people are moving in and out of the scene, where there's a potential photograph to be made here, because of the way the light was interacting at the bus stop, I used the hard light to create this strong and dramatic effect between the silhouette and that beautiful golden light hitting the face and the gesture of the man. And so I photograph at all times of the day, and all times in all places. Here in this scene on the right hand side, we have two men here in this Palestinian refugee camp interacting at an empty bed frame. And so as I photographed the man on the left hand side, I positioned him in the front here in the foreground. And so I was really curious about this gesture of his hand and his eyes and the way that he was looking out towards the left hand side of the frame. But because of the way the light was entering the scene from the outside inside here, as this barn is covered from the rooftop, we have a much more soft light effect, where you can see the way the light is casted on his face, and you can see the way the light fills the back of the frame here, where we have this graffiti tattered wall that is actually very pleasant and very easy to look with your eyes, as the way the soft light is very even throughout the frame actually emphasizes the gesture of this boy's face. And I find this to be a very simple way to use soft light. By photographing a simple gesture or photographing a simple moment like this, we can create a stronger photograph. And so basically the difference between hard versus soft light is the simple fact that hard light is going to create dramatic, harsh light and shadows, whereas soft light will be pleasant on the skin. It will be pleasant throughout the frame and will create an even distribution of light from the foreground to the background. And so when I'm photographing, I mostly like to have the sun to my back. And so by having the sun to my back, kind of like how I am right now in this video as I walk here in this park, I have the subjects illuminated from the front. And so you can see the way in which I photographed at the scene in Baltimore was by positioning the sun to my back, and by having this beautiful golden light from the sunset dramatically affect the scene, we have these long looming shadows, and you can see the way in which the skin of the boys and the girl here is illuminated evenly because the way the light is casted from the front. And so I find that by shooting with the sun to my back and illuminating the subjects from the front, I can create a very simple and dramatic effect where the visuals and the impact of the facial expressions are very clear and very visible. Whereas on the right hand side, I'm photographing during the sunrise. And so we have a sunset and a sunrise. And so during the sunrise here in Vietnam, I was photographing this beautiful golden light and illuminating the subjects from the back. And so you can see the way that the light interacts from the side. Here we have actually a combination of both side and backlight. And so you can see the way that that golden glow emphasizes that gesture. And you can see the way the golden glow is reflected off of that beautiful lake here at Hom Kim Lake in Hanoi, Vietnam. And we have this very simple moment elevated to a new height because of the use of light, because I positioned the sun to the front and had the subjects illuminated from the back. It created a more dramatic effect. And so the color temperature can also, depending on the temperature, change the mood of a scene, change the mood of a photograph. And so on the left-hand side in Mumbai, I photographed during the golden hour, and we have this beautiful, vibrant, popping color and light as we have those greens, those oranges, those yellows, and those reds, and those deep sort of vibrant colors that pop with this vibrancy, and it creates this very beautiful, colorful imagery. Whereas using cool light during this more cloudy day on the right-hand side of the frame, I actually used it to my advantage, as we have here a very chaotic and layered scene photographing through the mirror here. And actually, because I'm using this cooler light and this softer light without the use of light and shadow, you can actually have in the frame these beautiful interactions between the reflection, whereas this photograph otherwise wouldn't be possible to make with harsh light. And so having this cool tone, because of the way in which the light is casted and diffused through the clouds, and the way in which the colors at the scene are very muted with whites, grays, blacks, and these brown hues, we have a much different effect. We have a much calm, much more cool effect because of the color temperature at the scene. And so during this very beautiful rainy day in Philadelphia, I always visit Penn's Landing, as I'm always aware of the simple fact that the fog will interact and diffuse the light at the scene. And so you can see the way that the fog fills the frame, and it really does create this dramatic effect, and diffused light can be a very delightful effect in a photograph. And so by photographing during this very foggy day, or photographing on a very cloudy day, as the sun and the light is diffused through these different affected scenes, whether it's the light from the rain, or from the clouds, or from the beautiful fog, we can create a more eerie, moody effect using that diffused light. Whereas with harsh light, we have the interaction between the silhouette of the man and the pigeons, and by positioning myself in a particular way, illuminating the background in relationship to the shadows in the foreground, I was able to create this frame. And so the very simple way to use these kind of harsh conditions and use this way of photographing with light, I find to be very important to understand, where essentially I can position in the background the illuminated wall in relationship to the man who's standing tall and the birds in flight, which creates that dramatic effect. And so by understanding where I must position the subjects within my frame in relationship to the light and relationship to the background, I can create in a photograph this silhouette effect using that harsh diffused light to my advantage. And so the time of day can influence the photographs we make, where the golden hour provides this warm, soft light with long shadows, where the midday sun can be harsh with strong contrast and deep shadows, or the blue hour can be cool with these beautiful tones with balanced artificial and natural light. And actually here at this photograph that you see on the screen from Mumbai, I was photographing in between the golden and the blue hour. And so this is a very particular time of day where in about 10 minutes we would have the blue hour. And so the hues and the tones and the colors from the light actually is so nice in this frame because of the way I'm photographing during that golden hour, that transition period between the golden light and the blue light. And so during the golden hour, I love to photograph. This window of time, I believe we can make some of our strongest frames because of the way in which the warm and golden light creates this rich and vibrant sort of effect in our frames. The long shadows can add depth and give dimension to a scene, where the way the light etches and gives shape and form to these different moments can become more dramatic and interesting because of the use of light and shadow. Where we have at this scene this particular place that I'm photographing, using the wall in Penn's Landing to my advantage to create that effect of long looming shadows from the golden hour. You can see the way the light and the shadow play interacts at the scene very clearly because of the strong contrast. And so this directional light can create a very bold and cinematic effect, where these very simple uses of light and shadow can enhance a photograph and make it more dynamic and more vibrant for street photography. The midday sun, however, can become a bit more tricky, as the way the light is casted is coming from right up above, and so this will create deeper shadows and become a bit more difficult to photograph faces, where the shadows at this scene in Zambia, Africa are very much clear on the skin, on the face, and you can see the way that it's very contrasty with these strong highlights and the dark shadows, emphasizing the textures of the boy's back, of the skin as they bathe here in the lake. And so I find that using midday sun is a bit more challenging, but I find that being open to photographing in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening, or even the night can increase your ability to create stronger photographs despite the light. And so by working with the midday sun here and positioning the subjects in the lake and having this very particular frame be made from this vantage point using the lake, I was able to create a more delightful frame, something a little bit more easy on the eyes, where there isn't necessarily too much obscurity of the facial expressions and the gestures of the boys. And so the blue hour is something that I don't necessarily photograph that often. I try to, but I find that it's very cinematic. Here at this scene in Jericho, we have this very beautiful mix between the golden yellow artificial light and the blue sky there in the background beyond the mountain range. And so essentially, the key element of the blue hour is the blue sky. We have this deep blue cast, and this to me is something very intriguing. It's this very quick window of time that you can photograph as the night falls. And so the combination at this particular scene between the artificial yellow light is a very beautiful contrast against the blue sky during the blue hour. And so essentially these different times of day, whether you're photographing the golden hour, you're photographing during the middle of the day, or the blue hour, or at night, can create and enhance the mood and tell the story for your photographs. Where here during the blue hour, it was the perfect moment to photograph as the men were making prayer inside that home, and it was this very quiet, introspective scene with this strong color contrast of the blue sky. And so light can increase our photograph's ability to feel this emotional, so the viewer can have this feeling of an emotional impact or a mood in the photograph. What I'm trying to say is, during the golden hour, there's this warmth and this nostalgic feeling, or during the midday light, we have this harsh contrast and can become more dramatic in our scenes. Whereas when you're photographing the night light, there can be a sense of mystery and isolation. And I find that by using light as a way to tell a story, by using light as a way to create a dramatic visual effect, can make for stronger street photographs. And so I love photographing the light. I love chasing the light. I love using the light as a way for me to elevate something seemingly mundane to an extraordinary height through the way the long looming shadows are crushed in the background and the people in the frame are illuminated in the foreground, where sometimes when I'm exposing for light and shadows, I underexpose for dramatic contrast by using highlight weighted metering mode and illuminating what's in the shadows or what's in the highlights and crushing what's in the shadows. I'm able to create this dramatic effect. And so here at the scene in Baltimore, you can see the way the light and shadow play interacts. And so the way in which I photographed was by positioning that strong gesture of the man with the cigarette in relationship to the boy playing on the railing, by using light and shadow, by emphasizing the gestures in the light and crushing the superfluous details in the shadows, we have a more dramatic photograph. And so using light and shadow can be a fun way to create more dramatic imagery. Where here in Mexico City, I was photographing in a bustling market, but I found this particular moment and this way in which the light and shadow interplayed at the scene underneath the bridge to be intriguing. And so I positioned myself in relationship to the colorful mural in the background and was observant of the way that people interacted between the light and shadow here. And so as people entered the shadows, I made sure to make the photograph, as I was curious about the way the light would be displayed, where we have this very mysterious photograph where the face and the upper body of the man is mostly covered in the shadows, and the gesture of his arms are revealed in the highlights. And I waited for this decisive moment and that interplay between the light and shadow to create this more dramatic frame. And so I find that there is a way in which you can actually practically increase your ability to understand and use light in your photography. That being to observe a particular location throughout the different times of day, throughout the different times of seasons, and going back there over and over again. And so here in my hometown, Philadelphia, I love to photograph at Penn's Landing because I understand how open it is and how we have no buildings that obscure the light, and how I can use the beautiful background of the river to my advantage to create more layers in my photographs. And so I love to visit this particular place throughout the different seasons, whether it's sunny or rainy or middle of the day. I love to photograph at this particular place. And so by returning time and time again and photographing in a variety of conditions, I can increase my ability to understand how to use light to create stronger photographs. And so go out there, study the light in your town, study the different times in which light casts on certain corners or streets, and become in tune with the rhythm and the beat of the street. Through understanding light, you can increase your ability to create stronger street photographs. You can make more intentional decisions with what time you photograph, where you photograph, and how you use light in your photographs. And so I encourage you to master the light, to go out there and to follow the light, chase the light, and use it. For me, in my daily practice, I essentially have very clear understanding of where the light casts on certain streets in my hometown, Philadelphia. Even in Mumbai, India, at this particular scene, I knew that I should visit Bandra Fort here during the golden hour because it was this beautiful sunset, and the way the sun sets from a particular angle, it just definitely, I knew, would hit this area. I knew that it would hit this side of town because it was near the sea and it was in an open space, similar to me approaching Penn's Landing. And so by understanding where the sunset would be most prevalent and visiting this particular location in Bandra, Mumbai, India, I was able to make this compelling photograph. And so it really is important for you to understand light so that when you're out there in the real world practicing your street photography, you can know where you must be at what time of the day and to photograph light with more intention and intensity. You know, for me, light, I absolutely have this affinity for. You know, for me, most of the time when I'm out shooting, I simply follow the light. I just go out there and I see the sun and I just walk towards it. And then if I'm at a corner and I see a potential photograph, I put the sun to my back and I make relationships with the way in which the light is illuminating from the front door, overexposing by a stop and shooting towards the sunlight and having the subjects backlit. You know, these very simple fundamental ideas can hopefully be a foundation for you to go out there and to execute and to use these techniques and to use these ideas in the real world with practice. And so once again, study your hometown, study the route that you walk, understand at what time of day the light hits and where. Photograph during the mornings, photograph during the afternoons, photograph during the evenings, and understand how the difference of light interacts at these scenes. And then go out there with intention and photograph the streets. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Yeah, this is how I want to do my videos. I want to go out for these nature hikes, be in a park, go for a walk. I hate being trapped in my freaking room because I like to walk, and this is why I love to walk and talk, and so the iPad is great for these videos. So yeah, I was lucky and had a very warm day today, so I'm pretty pleased. Check it out, time to cross the stream. So oh man, I almost slipped. Yeah, I definitely want to do more videos outside like this for these lectures, and so this is the first test. Hopefully the audio is good. Going forward, I'm gonna do it like this for sure. Peace.